ago, our Sharp Business Systems, SBS, actually evaluated several companies and several options, not just companies, but several options in order to be able to offer managed network services to their customers. And out of all the options, and you can imagine all of them, they chose Continuum. So in a way, we watched, those of us on the dealer side of the business, watched this business model and this relationship with Continuum through our SBS folks to see how did it go? How was the launch? How was the sales engagement? And frankly, it was really a great way for us to kind of test pilot something, or in other words, let our own dogs eat the dog food before we went full in and brought this to our dealer channel. So this has been very much a tried and proven process. And in fact, I don't have all the statistics, but the SBS branches have really seen, I would say in the last 6 months, Michael, a tremendous amount of not just activity, but closed business. So, and we know that many of you are evaluating something like this in your own businesses, whether you've started it, you've bought a dealer or a technology dealer, or in many cases, people have taken their own IT staff and turned them into sort of subject matter experts in the space and gone out to their customers. So this was the option that we chose. We think it's a great way to partner, because frankly, we know that you don't want to give us all your customers and let us do it as some of our competitors are. So we really believe that this is the right strategy to go forward. Michael and Mary, who has done this with us now on these roadshows, but has also been a big part of the SBS engagement, I think really has a tremendous wealth of information in his role as the director for the dealer sales channel. So I am really excited to introduce him and look forward to hearing the presentation. Thanks, Michael.
Thank you, everyone. And with the lazy river outside and the beautiful weather, I'm honored that you've chosen to come listen about IT rather than go out there and do something fun. So I'll try to go easy on you and get you on your way with the rest of the fun for the afternoon and evening. But as that wonderful introduction was, I wanted to chat with you a little bit about how a partnership with Continuum work to help you get into IT, or if you're already in IT, how we maybe could be able to help augment what you're already doing, drive some better efficiencies, of course, selfishly for yourself, drive some more revenues out of your IT opportunities. But also, I think for dealer principals in the room, you're really looking at this as how do I change the perception of my dealership from just simply a copy and print house to really a technology solutions provider. And IT can really get you there. Also, from a sales perspective, I'd love to have more things and more excuses to go engage my customer with, and IT makes perfect sense. So there's a lot of synergies within a dealer allowing this to be part of your product mix. If you were to engage in a customer relationship and IT services with a customer, it's all built around a monthly contractual obligation. You guys are already pretty darn good at selling monthly contracts. So there's a lot of synergies here about being successful. But as Laura mentioned, there's a couple of different ways to do it. Of course, I'm here to share with you the Sharp and Continuum perspective, but that's really through a partnership. There's other ways to get this done, if you will. There's other ways to skin the cat. You could, of course, build it yourself, which is costly and a little time-consuming to get that going. You could also acquire, a managed services provider, IT VAR, if you will, but sometimes the good ones are hard to find. Or you can find a partnership, like this scenario here, where you can literally immediately tap into resources and scale and get to market as quickly as possible, but also profitably. So wanted to just share with you a little bit about what that means and how to kind of be successful in this arena. But I think even before that, it's kind of important to understand why your customers need this and what goes on within the traditional small to medium-sized business. Any users less than maybe 500 users or less is what I would consider the small to medium-sized marketplace that's ideally suited for this kind of IT service delivery. But let's take a look at what's underneath the hood of their IT infrastructure. So it's lots of different types of applications, lots of different pieces of software, and it all resides on different levels of IT infrastructure and dissimilar hardware, different ages of hardware. And unfortunately, when you're trying to make all of that kind of fit in there to a nice, neat package, it always doesn't play so nicely with itself, if you will. So your customers need comprehensive IT support to help them manage this very important IT infrastructure for them. In addition to that, it's also important to understand where your customers come from. What's their legacy of how they get IT support today? Traditionally, if you ask them today, yeah, well, I've got a guy. I've got a guy, if I have an issue, I call up this individual, he finishes his lunch, and finally, after an hour of Orlando traffic, he finally shows up in the afternoon and fixes something. Well, that's pretty darn inefficient for that individual, but it's really inefficient for the customer, because they're always constantly having to wait on this physical aspect to show up and fix something. What you want to present that can be drastically different from what your current customers are getting today is more of a proactive, preventative management, and also remote triage perspective. It's more operationally efficient for you, but obviously it's much better for your customer. So you can drastically illustrate the difference between how you intend to support your customers versus what they're getting today. And I also can't stress enough how poorly underserved this marketplace is. The traditional MSPs or IT VARs, God love them, they're great, and they're really well knowledgeable, but they just don't have the kind of resources that you and your customers really need as a mandate for providing the right kind of IT support. It's typically a Bob's computer shop that rolls around town, and he has lots of different customers and lots of different activities on his plate. And at the end of the day, IT support is still hugely revolved around a human element, and when you can drastically provide more resources, more access to technical acumen and diverse kind of technical specialties, 24/7, 365, then you're developing a business and a technical backbone that's drastically different than what they're currently getting today. So here's all that story essentially in this illustration. So this is really what will be tattooed on the brains of your sales reps as you're trying to introduce how you're trying to fix the problem that they have today with their current business model from their IT service provider today. As I mentioned before, IT services is built around a lot of wonderful pieces of software, but at the end of the day, it's still a human element behind the scenes providing a lot of the triage. So currently today, that fixed bar right there in the middle is typically what the Bob's computer shops or the IT VARs around town are typically able to provide. Just a fixed set of resources and access to that technology talent, but they're also dealing with a varying level of needs from their customers all across their geography. So when you just have 4 or 5 of these individuals, unfortunately they have to sleep and eat and go on vacation and go to family t-ball games, right? So they're not always providing the most consistent level of support to their customers. And that's what drives your customers frustrated and drives them crazy today, because I call my guy, but he gets back to me in maybe an afternoon or a couple of days. That's just not the kind of level of consistent customer support that can allow your offering to bubble up against your competition. So when you can fix this inherent problem for them and be able to deliver an elastic set of resources, literally an army of engineers through the Continuum partnership to your business model and to your workflow, then you're solving this problem of limited resources and limited access to technical acumen that can help support their IT issues and IT support mechanisms. So in addition to that, there's also a healthy amount of research around this and market forecasts as to where this is headed. And we all like graphs that are up and to the right and of course green because of the monetary opportunity ahead of us. But there's some real rationale behind what's going on here and where this may be a real issue or a real target for you as part of what the future of your dealership should look like as it relates to adding IT services as part of your product mix. Number one is your customers are using more IT today than they did last year, and they'll use more IT next year and the year after that. IT is more complex, but it does some wonderful things for them. It allows them to be really, really efficient and do some wonderful things for their customers. But it's really, really complex, and they need a support entity to help them provide. Gartner does a lot of research in and around this space, and they estimate that the average top-line gross amount of revenue that's spent on IT support is between 5 and 7% of top-line revenue to support their IT. It's typically the 3rd highest expense behind HR and rent is IT support. There's a whole heck of a lot of opportunity out there for you. In addition to this, and the momentum shift and the opportunity here is also the adaptation of managed services in and around your customer base today. And they're so much more educated around a true managed services relationship rather than the traditional break-fix relationship. And I mean that in the sense of they're so much more comfortable now than maybe in the past few years in engaging you with a monthly contractual obligation rather than, hey, I'll just call you when I need you. That's not really predictable for you, and it's not good business because you have to have an army of those individuals ready in a truck to go fix something. You'd much rather have a predictable model every single month with residual income, but also a backbone of resources to be able to do the vast majority of that effectively so you can well protect your margins. In addition to that forecast is also cloud services. Cloud services is a huge driver and a huge opportunity for you as well. And within a good comprehensive IT services platform, you can have a seat at the table to also be a cloud advocate for your customers. And really what cloud services really should mean to you as a revenue opportunity is really around where your customer's infrastructure is going to reside in the future. Cloud services just simply means that your customers are going to be accessing their resources not from traditional on-premise resources that's now typically going to be in the cloud. And it's already happening today. And the good news is there's a lot of momentum shift in that arena that you can obviously capitalize on that opportunity as well, what we would call the hybrid environment. You managing infrastructure that's both on-premise and also off-premise in the cloud as well. And that's also a competitive advantage for you over the traditional Bob's computer shops or the break-fix guys that you're typically going to be competing with, because when there's no more on-site resources to support, Bob has no reason to show up anymore because he can't do that remote triage and that backbone that you're delivering to your marketplace. So that's the future where IT is, and being sure that you can wrap IT services around that cloud service as well means your IT solution is built for the future. Whether we like it or not, cloud services is here. Your customers today are already accessing applications in the cloud. You want to make sure that your IT solution is built for that moment. So there's, of course, some other offerings out there and some other manufacturers that put a whole lot of time and effort and resources and money into what their offering should look like. So the difference, I think the different approach that Sharp took was that, do you really feel super comfortable in handing over your well-earned customer list to somebody else to really support your customers? It's probably not the ideal scenario. You don't make your own copiers or printers, but you support them and you sell them with your own logo on your chest today. That's a good partnership that works for you. The same will be said for the Continuum relationship as well. Versus some of these are just simply referral relationships where you're passing off your well-earned customers to someone else, where you really lose that customer relationship and that customer involvement into how their IT is being supported to another entity. But also, selfishly for yourself, you're starting to share in that revenue as well. So to be able to make sure, if you really want to do this, do it right, take ownership of it, make sure it's your solution where you can white label it yourself and where you can have complete control of the revenue opportunity as well. These are your customers, this is your well-earned and blood, sweat, and tears. You acquired this customer base. Make sure you're providing the right kind of solution that you can take control over and also you can manage from a revenue perspective as well. So let's also take a look about how do I go transition my sales force into going and selling something new? And be mindful, this is a little different than your traditional core business. It's still a monthly contract, but it's a little different in how this is done and what's the real pain points behind why your customers would need you. So as part of our dealer program, for any of the dealers that we may work with, we have a dealer program, kind of a launch plan for your sales reps. And it's really about converting their mindset in around selling something new, but most importantly, how do I identify a good IT opportunity? Because be mindful, not every one of your customers is going to be right with us. Not every one of your customers have very important IT, but also not every one of them has really important IT that they really value. And that's important because if they really value it, that'll be really an important trigger for you, whether they're going to value the monetary investment it's going to take to engage with you in the right kind of way to deliver the right kind of support. So there is a process through what we call a client profile. And in layman's terms, it's just simply a sales cheat sheet for your sales team to have a very consistent and defined sales methodology for how you want to engage them. But most importantly, what are the selfish answers we want to drive from that customer as to whether this is a good IT opportunity or not? How do you value your IT? How important it is? Buzzwords like RTO, recovery time objective, is simply saying, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, if you were to be without that server or that desktop or that laptop, what would be the business impact of your organization? That's going to dictate you how healthy and how important that IT infrastructure is to them. Therefore, it'll selfishly tell you whether it's a good opportunity you want to really chase down. So all this client profile is really just a phone conversation. It could be a physical visit. It's really up to you. But it's just essentially probing your base and probing your absolute book of customers, or maybe your organic geography as well, to understand what are the good IT opportunities I can cover, so the right kind of opportunities reside in the pipeline. Then from there, you'll physically visit the customer location and perform a network assessment scan, very similar to like you would do within a print assessment. We want to lift underneath the hood of that IT opportunity so we can truly understand what's in there and how can we provide support, but most importantly, to identify the pain points. And likely there's pain points in and around their IT today, or they wouldn't allow you to come in and talk about your IT services, right? So we want to uncover what's ailing them today and be able to provide a solution set around that. So the network assessment, as part of your sales workflow, will be a helpful way to understand what's causing them issues today, what we found, here's what concerns us, here's how we intend to resolve them, and here's how we intend to avoid them forever occurring again, because we're truly going to manage this solution in the beginning and in the end and in the future, so we can ensure none of these issues do arise on the network again. And then, oh, by the way, here's how much it costs per month. So that's an important process to make sure your sales team is fishing in the right ponds, but also to bubble up and make sure that pipeline is the right kind of opportunities and the right kind of activities to make sure it's a strong pipeline, but it's also a pipeline of opportunities that are ready to strike. So in and around just some simple expectations and some cadence about how we've worked with lots of different dealer sales departments to make sure you're driving the right kind of activities to drive the right kind of opportunities to close. And so, once again, be mindful that there's always, when I walk into a sales room and then a dealer's launching an IT platform, or maybe they're trying to refine their current offering and maybe they've just kind of stalled out a little bit, the sales team always just kind of glosses over and says, well, I'm not an IT expert, I don't know if I can do this. Well, be mindful that your customers know less about their IT than you do oftentimes. What you're asking your sales team to do is simply have a business conversation around how their IT works for them. It's the same what they're doing now. Let salespeople do what they do best, which is cultivate relationships, identify pain points, and bring solutions to the table. That's exactly what you'll be doing here within IT. And then, of course, make sure that your IT or your sales team have the right kind of IT or technical acumen within the dealership. We call it a VCIO, or a virtual chief information officer. Some people call them SMEs, or subject matter experts. Make sure your sales team has that access to that technical person within your dealership that can help them. Because be mindful, there's going to be a lot of business conversations, but the technical minutia will get to the point where they will need a technical person to help them push this opportunity to close, or at least explain the technical minutia of what you found and how you intend to support them. So as long as you have those resources available within the dealership, your activity within the sales department should be very strong. So I mentioned a little bit about pain points, and there's lots of different reasons why we see IT contracts be bought and sold, but these are the three main ones that we always see as a reason for why an IT contract was acquired, and these are just things you'll want to be mindful of, because these are three things that if you can typically resolve this for your customers, you typically are creating a very compelling reason to bring them on as one of your IT customers. So, coincidentally, they're all started with F's, so they're the three F's, if you will, for the kind of the compelling arguments to bring someone to close. But frustration is pretty obvious. Frustration around how my IT currently works for me. Frustration from my current provider because I ever can't get him on the phone, or he can't provide the right kind of support for me. Also, fear and uncertainty. Fear around, okay, what would be the business impact of my organization if I were to have a severe downtime? Fearful of a data loss. A lot of your customers today in the healthcare arena are fearful around HIPAA regulations. And what does that mean for my doctor's office or my orthopedist, or what does that mean for me in and around this IT infrastructure that traditionally hasn't been really important to me, but all of a sudden now HIPAA means it's really, really important to me about how I manage it and who manages it from an IT perspective. And that's a huge driver for delivering something that can be really attractive to your marketplace. And then lastly, financial concerns. This is where it's a little different from your current solution set, where you're saying, okay, here's what you're paying today, Mr. Customer, here's how we can deliver, here's the delta, we'll roll the new box. This is oftentimes not a commoditized sale. It's not so much about what they're paying today, it's really around managing their financial risk of managing this very important IT infrastructure. And by that I mean, what are the opportunity costs in and around a severe IT outage in my infrastructure? What's the business impact of my organization financially? If I were to have a severe data breach, what would be the legal obligations or legal ramifications of a data breach? These are all things that you want to drive in a conversation, and us as salespeople just shut up long enough to listen to what the customer needs or what their concerns are, and let them illustrate what any one of these needs are and fit a solution in and around that. And just kind of some of my sales words of wisdom, if you will, while we're on this, is just these, once again, understand it's not a commodity, it's not about what you're paying today versus what we can deliver, because IT support is so different. What they may mean as IT support is different from what you mean or what your neighbor means. It's a pretty big umbrella. So you want to clearly define what yours is and how yours is different, and how you intend to resolve some of these mitigating risks in and around this very important IT infrastructure. Also understand from a sales perspective, once again, it's not a huge minutia of an IT conversation. It's a business discussion around how their IT works for them. And be mindful that oftentimes it's a different decision maker, different from your traditional copy and print relationships. Also, clearly understand how they're currently being supported today, whether they insource, maybe they have some internal IT resources, or whether they completely outsource. That will severely dictate your sales talk track in and around how you intend to support on-site resources, or how you intend them in a completely 100% outsourced entity as well. Then also, do what salespeople do best, which is satisfy their pain points, provide a solution set, and create a compelling argument to deliver the right kind of resources and the right kind of services to them. Then also, of course, like anything else, manage a quality pipeline, and then have a little sales swagger around this. I always like to use that term just because have some sales swagger. Even if you're a new IT sales rep or you're a traditional copier sales rep and now you're being asked to sell IT, maybe I'm a little hesitant about this, I'm not sure what I'm doing. At the very least, have complete confidence in your service delivery behind the scenes. And that's important for the dealer principals in the room. If you're going to go ask your best salespeople to go introduce this to their best customers, you better make sure you have the right kind of service delivery that they can have confidence in, so therefore they'll exude confidence to the customer that you can deliver on those promises to. So a little bit about us. We are an organization that works 100% through the channel. So we've got some numbers up here. I think line item number 3 and line item number 5 are what you most care about. What we deliver to you is really what you don't have today, which is literally an army of technical acumen behind the scenes with a diverse amount of specialties, working 24/7, 365 around the clock for you. And that's immediately what you can plug into. 600 technicians sounds like a nice high number, and it is, but it also means you have a diverse set of specialties. Cisco experts, VMware experts, Exchange experts, anything that you can imagine, we've got some experts behind the scenes. So what that means for you is you can immediately go tap into and cast a wider net across multiple environments. Because let's be honest, there's lots of different environments out there. So if you don't have the technical acumen to maybe bring on a SQL customer, good news is you've got a partner that does. So now you can less and less walk away from opportunities, maybe because you don't have the right kind of technical acumen to support that particular customer. And then also, like I mentioned, we're 100% committed to the channel. So we only work with partners like yourself. So you're not out there all of a sudden going to find yourselves competing with us side by side for an opportunity. But what that really means is everything in and around our relationship should look and feel like your own. Everything from the monthly reports you share with your customer has your logo on it. The way we answer the phone from a help desk perspective, we answer that as your dealer name. So anything and everything built around us is built for it to look and feel like your own. So you completely own this from beginning to end. And just as this quick illustration is just to share with you exactly how this should work and how important. So we simply just want to plug into your people, and everything on the bottom is what you can expect from us. Cloud-based RMM is just a fancy word for the Continuum software that does all the happy and healthy preventative maintenance and monitoring stuff to keep those devices happy and healthy and avoid issues before they ever arise.
I always tell dealers that are new to this service delivery needs to look and feel like Homeland Security. The less they see of you that means you're doing your better job for them.